you remember what I looked like in Bloc Party. I mean, I was an even nerdier version of that at school. So I really, but I was mostly overlooked for cool and interesting things, really, even if I didn't necessarily feel as I looked as a human being. But yeah, it was kind of like I don't know. I think I began thinking to myself, oh, there's a certain amount of power in actually being able to play this instrument that not many other people pick up or try and learn. And I did like that, but I also ended up feeling a little bit disposable as well because I was just passed around from one group to another, and like I felt like I had very little say in the matter or any real agency in my own musical destiny. And it wasn't until I started doing A levels and some new kids joined my school, and this one kid who I viewed with some suspicion because I thought he was copying my haircut. Was in my English class, and I didn't talk to him for a year. And he's my best friend now, and his name is Babak. He's actually an artist of some repute, based in London. But he was a guitarist, and we made when I finally got round to like when I finally got over my attitude towards him and spoke to him a bit. I found that we had some overlapping musical interests, and because his parents are Iranian, I think we also bonded somewhat. Maybe unconsciously over the fact that we were like one of like what we were two of like a handful of like non-white kids in our school as well. So I think there was this kind of outsider thing that brought us together. And that's really, we started doing bands together. And ultimately, I moved to London so I could try and do a band with him, which didn't work out. But that's through Babak, I ended up meeting Kelly and then the rest of Bloc Party.
Yeah, yes. How did you meet them then? Was that quite organic?
Um, I moved to, so I did a philosophy degree at the University of East Anglia, and when I graduated, I realized actually I had very my what I realized that what the future held for me was a career in pizza delivery. So I moved back home and had a very depressing year living with my mum and my brother, delivering pizzas. And my mum one day out of the blue just said, "Look, you seem depressed. The only thing you ever seem to care about is music. I think you should just like forget everything else. Just do that. Like just do music." And yeah, it was just this. It was this life changing moment. Just my mum kind of giving me permission. Not that I needed permission from my parents particularly, and not that they were strict or had like very specific ideas of what I should be doing, but just that this kind of quiet validation from my mum really gave me like this impulse to pursue music. And I was like, well, there's fuck all going on in Bournemouth, so I better go somewhere else. And I was like, okay, London. I'm gonna move to London. I'm gonna get myself on a music technology uh, course, and I'm gonna try and do a band with Babak. And so yeah, I spent a year living pizza, saving up, applying to universities, and yeah, I got into a music technology program at Thames Valley University, which is now the University of West London, or like it got incorporated into the University of West London. And yeah, so that was my that was my reason for moving there. But really, I wanted to do bands. But really, what happened was I would just go drinking with Babak, and we'd write down a long list of band names and like album titles and song titles, and we thought that was like a lot more fun than actually trying to write music. Just having all these like stupid band concepts. And he worked at a cinema he worked at the Curzon in Soho, which is an art house cinema on Shaftesbury Avenue, I think. And he one day this Babak was like, "Oh, there's this new guy at work. He's a bit he's a bit weird. He's like very serious. He's very serious about his band. He's always playing gigs and like I don't know like and." I think that was quite impressive to Babak as well, even though he'd been living in London for so long, because we didn't actually know someone who had like access to a network of gig promoters and various toilet clubs and whatever else, the things that you needed to do to try and like get a career started. And Kelly already had all of that, but like I was always like, yeah, fucking hell, that's all he talks about is his band, and he's like very serious. It's a bit weird. I'm not used to this, and um, he was always looking for a drummer. Like they went through so many drummers, and he'd never heard me play, and I think maybe he felt like I was somewhat relatable or something, and he from more or less from the moment we met, he was haranguing me to play in his band, and I was just very resistant, and it took about a year before I actually finally agreed to do. I was like, "Fuck it, all right, you've worn me down, and maybe maybe I should just try it out and see if I can actually even fucking play in front of people." Like I have no idea; I'd never really done it properly before, and that's really how that whole thing began for me.
But why were you so resistant then, out of interest?
Because I don't think I quite knew what I wanted from music. So I was on a music technology course. So like part of me really wanted to just work in a studio, and not be involved at all really in playing music. I was more interested in producing or engineering or whatever, or actually making the sounds come together by that point. But I was slowly starting to realize that actually it's quite a thankless task, and studio work is really hard, and you have to be very focused, very committed, and very disciplined to do that and to work with fucking musicians who are actually just awful people for the most part. So it's like all those like managing all those egos and petty rivalries and insecurities. I mean, it's you need to be a therapist first and foremost, and then a producer or an engineer or whatever. And I don't know. I mean, I think there was maybe a part of me that thought that perhaps I even then like when I met Kelly and like eventually went to see the band that went on to become Bloc Party perform. I was watching, and the previous drummer was a much better player than me, and I was like, well, I'm not as technically as accomplished as this guy, but I think because of that, there isn't a huge amount holding me back in terms of the energy and the enthusiasm and maybe the excitement I could inject into this. And um, I just began thinking to myself, well, yeah, let's see if that's enough. Let's see if that's enough to carry me through a period in playing in a band as a drummer, and that's really what happened.
Yeah, I mean, someone did ask that question. Just try and find it on Twitter, just regards to you being the ninth drummer. Was that something? Did you feel pressure because of that, or obviously you had a personal relationship with Kelly, so maybe you didn't?
I didn't have any pressure because I wasn't approaching it in the same way as Kelly and Russell and Gordon were. Like I didn't see it necessarily as a career. I didn't think that's just the stuff of dreams, isn't it? Like how many people actually get to do that for a living? And and yeah, I think I still had this very small town mentality in terms of like how I approached most things, and I was very much like, no, I'm just happy to be here, man. And I think it's such. I mean, yeah, the only pressure I felt at the time was to, it was very much on myself, and it was to not fuck things up, basically, and actually, not embarrass myself, and at least seem competent, or that I vaguely knew what I was doing. But I feel, and maybe it's something that's probably always held me back, but I've always been like very self-aware about the limits of my ability, and like I knew I wasn't as good as some of the other people I'd seen or heard the band play with. Uh, so I didn't really approach it thinking, well, I have to be the best drummer ever. I just have to be competent, and I have to be interesting enough as a musician to justify my position here, and that's really all it was.